get very, very, very specific and honest with yourself about what you really want from that, right? 10 studios. What is that going to do for you? Is it purely financial? Like if you were like, I want to make $1 million, do you need 10 studios to make $1 million? All right, welcome. Devin Gage here, Little Jim Big Heart, with a very special edition. I'm in another studio, Westchester Studios, run by Simmons Media. I'm here with my guy, Matt Simmons. What's going on, Matt?
What's going on, Devin? Glad to be here.
So we're here for a special episode because Matt reached out to me. I've worked closely with Matt for, 2 years, over 2 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
He does all of our video stuff, our video editing, podcast stuff. He does a lot of fitness experts, a lot of gym owners that I know. So he's got a very good reputation. And he opened this studio, how long ago? Like 6 months, not even?
So we just opened in January. I mean, the idea has been like in the works for the 3 years.
Yeah.
But really just pulled the trigger in January and went in on it.
And he hit me up, and they're looking to potentially expand. The early kind of thought process of expanding to other studio locations. And he asked, lessons I've learned from scaling, the mistakes that I've made, which have been a lot. And I was like, you know what? Might as well film a podcast about it and use it to keep a record for when you are ready to expand. Yeah. And then I can use it for content for this podcast. Matt wanted to prepare some questions, and we're just going to kind of go off top of our heads. I prepared a few things to talk about. But really, the topic that we're going to talk about today is how to know when you're ready to scale, expand to multiple locations, grow, maybe move to a bigger space, and what should you plan for, what mistakes you want to avoid, and all things that might come from that conversation. So, Matt, where's your head at?
Yeah. So we've had the studios going for a little bit now, and we've seen a lot of good success. We have a lot of our systems in place. And, the thought's there to take it to the next level, open up a second and a third, but start with the second now. But I had just a couple questions that, came to my mind of who would be the best person to answer these questions. I was like, Devin literally just did this with his gyms.
Yeah.
And, so I figured I'd shoot you some questions.
All right, lay it on me.
All right. First one I just have is, when is the right time? When do you know you're ready? Do you ever know you're ready?
So let me start with this.
Yeah.
So when I was looking to expand, there's so many avenues that you can go in. I reached out to a finance guy because I'm like, is it commercial real estate? Do I buy a building to expand into? And the first thing he asked me, and it was a good reminder of, is like, what is the vision? So what is the vision for what you want to do? Because it could be one massively successful location. It could be 100 locations, but what is the vision that is like most compelling and exciting to you, say?
Yeah, so for the studios, we want to have 10 studios in this, not just general area, but like along the East Coast. Serve as many people as we can, help them, get their message out and help as many people as they can.
Cool. So that's the first thing. So it is clear that you do want multiple locations. To answer your question more directly, it's almost like having kids. You're never going to feel like you're 100% ready. There's always going to be that nagging kind of feeling that like maybe, when it's this. What I will say is I set a personal goal, and I basically created a lever for myself. And I was like, when we hit $1 million in annual revenue, like once we hit that point, we will pull the trigger. Like I didn't want to do it until it was a meaningless like milestone because we could have done it before then. It has nothing to do with profitability, but sometimes it just helps to have like, this is the trigger for when I'm ready. For me, it was $1 million business. So for you, like you've got to know your own numbers. We don't have to talk, the depth of your numbers, but the biggest thing is you have to know that if it completely fails, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Like when we expanded to our California location, which ended up not working, I knew going into it, I was like, if it completely bombs, I'll be able to pay the rent and it's not going to put me out of business. So I think you need to have that in line so that you've got a little bit of a buffer there.
For sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. Ready for the next one?
Yeah, man, I'm ready.
Cool. I got a few here, so let's get through them.
Let's go.
How do you find the right people?
So you need to have a very clear idea of what the needs of the business are. So do you have like an accountability chart for your business? Like an org chart?
Yep.
You have that set up.
Yep.
So anybody listening, if you don't have that set up, it's not helpful to just start hiring and like putting people in seats unless you have a very ironed out structure. That's where you want to start. Like, how do you start hiring is like get very granular about like, this is what the business needs. So who would be the person that you're looking to hire to run another studio?
Like, what do you mean?
So you said like,
Yeah.
you want to, how do you know, or how do you find the right people?
Yeah.
Right. What's the person that you're looking to find?
Yes. So this would be a studio manager.
Okay. Studio manager.
Yeah.
So primarily ops.
Yep.
Right. Maybe ops and sales.
Yep.
So what are the skills that person needs?
Sales. That's a big one. And then be able to deliver a great experience for the people who come in the door.
Yeah. So, I mean, the easy answer is just run job ads. Make sure it is like the obvious choice, especially for somebody that if you're just going to have them run a studio on their own, it is very much like need to run it like their own. So you need to hire somebody that's got a proven track record of performing in a role like that. We've made the mistake of like elevating somebody that we wanted it for them instead of them being the obvious choice, like on paper, but also historical data. The best predictor of future performance is the previous history. So run job ads.
Yeah.
Get really clear on the job description. Make the incentives really compelling so you're going to get a really good person. I'll say don't skimp away from like paying somebody pretty well. Like if this is a profitable business, I've always been a fan of like running a fatter payroll just to give a buffer for myself.
Okay.
Right. So we've not shied away from like paying on the higher end so that we can get the best talent. And it also means like we don't deal with a lot of the bullshit that you deal with lower paid employees. And then it's like, shit, I got to drive to like Delaware to open the gym this morning at 5 a.m. You pay high enough and like those problems typically don't happen.
Sure. Have you had that happen?
Me personally, no.
Yeah.
But we have had, we've had very little of that. Very, very little. I mean, again, another mistake some people make is they try to run their second locations like an extension of the first. You want to treat these like their own individual things. If it is too much like an extension of the first, where it's just like it's another employee but just not in the building, you're going to run into more of those issues. Like they're going to call out sick or they're going to like not take full ownership. So the advice that I've given a lot of my gym owner friends is like these things should be like standalone businesses. They should have their own point person that assumes all responsibility. They should be generating their own leads. They should be doing their own sales. There should not be too much reliance on this business like floating the ops of that business.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Hey guys, just real quick pause. If you're enjoying this, please hit subscribe, like, comment, share this with any fitness professionals that you feel like would benefit from content like this. Let's get back to the episode.
And then, so that kind of like leads me into another question. It's just like, how does your role then change as you scale, as you open up a second, a third location? How does your role evolve?
A lot. Yeah, it changes a lot. So years ago, we did a mastermind event with Seth Godin. So you've probably read some of his books.
Oh, yeah.
So we did a Q&A session with Seth Godin. Tell you how much it costs. So the cost to do a Q&A with Seth Godin is 1,000 copies of his book. So we had to buy 1,000. The mastermind group had to buy 1,000 copies of his book. Little pro tip, that's how a lot of these guys make it onto the bestseller list. Like they don't care about their speaker fees. They want legacy because being a #1 New York Times bestseller is going to be way more lucrative long-term than like a $5,000 1-hour speaker fee. So he's like, if I can roll that into books being bought, he's like, I'm going to be guaranteed on that list and then I'll be a legend and then I'll be able to charge more. Anyway, that's a tangent. How does your role change? When we sat down with Seth Godin, that question was asked. Like, how does somebody know when they're ready, or what would you tell somebody when they wanted to expand? And the answer that he gave always stuck with me. He said, don't plan on opening another location. Plan on opening 10. Because if you open another location, you are in the business of running 2 gyms or you're running 2 businesses. When you open 10, you are now in the business of running businesses, right? So the difference is you just have to think of it from more of like a bird's eye view and a mechanical standpoint versus an emotional standpoint. Like you shouldn't be the guy, let's say you open in King of Prussia.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to be the guy in King of Prussia.
Right.
Because then you're just in 2 places at one time, which is not possible. And there's other things that are going to drop off. you want to think from a strategic standpoint and a system standpoint. What are the systems that need to be created? Like, what is the infrastructure that needs to exist for that thing to be self-sufficient? And you just become like the puppeteer of all that. So that's really like, instead of being the guy, the front-facing, the guy doing these podcast interviews in all of these studios, you need to be the guy that creates the conditions for those businesses to succeed the way that this did. So pulling yourself out and thinking, what are the systems that made this successful without me? Does that make sense?
Right. That does make sense. Awesome. Okay. All right. How do you, I guess that pretty much answered my next question, which was how do you avoid, each time you scale into a new location, just becoming a more messier version of the previous? But I guess that is it with the systems in place.
Yeah. Well, talk about messiness. Like, where does that show up?
I mean, it shows up in everything with your, how you treat, your customer when they come in the door, the product that they get, the service that they get. That's what I would say is messy. There's no like clear cut way. It's not the same at every studio location.
I'll do a deeper dive in my top 5, but were there any other questions that you prepared?
Yeah. Did you ever promote, the wrong person too fast? We briefly touched on it, but like, have you had an experience and like, how'd you recover from that where, you had the wrong person, maybe it was somebody you knew, put them in the position, but then it didn't work out?
Yeah, a few times. The first thing is it's got to be the obvious choice. You can't want it more than them. So we've promoted people that were people that we really liked, that we wanted to give an opportunity to, but it has to be, especially for like a director role, like somebody that's going to run the studio, they're going to be fully responsible for the set of keys, opening the door, shutting down, like all of that. They have to want it, and they have to approach you with the desire to do it. Like the mistakes that we've made has been like, hey, we're doing this. Who wants to be a part of this? And you get kind of like the half hand raised, like, I want to do it. And be like, do you want to do it? And they're like, if you want me to do it, I'll do it. That's like the red flag is like, if you think I can do it, I'll do it. That is not the person that you want in that role. You want somebody that is like, if they didn't do it with you, they would be doing it on their own. Like in the gym world, like if they didn't come work for you, they would be wanting to open their own gym on their own. Maybe they just don't have the money, the risk tolerance, or the know-how. Your value is in the risk tolerance, which I know you have a high risk tolerance. Like you're not afraid to take risks and like take big shots. You want somebody that could run their own gym if they just had that notch.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing is like, if you promote anybody, it's got to be like somebody that is itching to do this. Like we've got a guy, Jose Rivera. He's been in our gym. He's banging down our door to be the next facility leader. And we just signed a lease for a new gym with him. And like he's the obvious choice. If we interviewed 100 people, he would be the obvious choice. Another, on that note, treat it as if you're interviewing for it. So even if you have a person, I would still run a job ad and I would still treat this like have them bring a resume, have them apply for the job and interview for the job as if they were brand new. Because again, the best predictor of future performance is previous performance. So if they like prepare a resume and you're looking at that resume and job experience and you're like, this has nothing to do with where we're going, it's going to be a tougher job for them. So you just want to be like, try to remove as much emotion out of it as possible. Think from the needs of the business and not, this is the person that I like or I want this for them, because at the end of the day, you can't want it more than them. And I know that you probably do in some capacity.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, in the gym world, it's going to be the same thing. I mean, this is probably a very similar business model. It's a subscription model. It's very heavily focused on sales, very much like fitness. It's very customer service oriented, and they're very lean. Like you don't need many employees at these places.
Yeah, 100%. Right? You just really need one and then somebody who can fill in.
So the problem with that is a very lonely job. Like you are somebody that can build a community around yourself. It's obvious with the work that you've done already in this young in business. Most people don't do that. So you will see, like, if you bring somebody maybe from here, again, I don't know if you have people in mind, but you need somebody that is proven to like be self-sufficient and to be able to, one, they should be like from that area, because let's just use King of Prussia. It's about 25, 30 minutes away.
Yeah.
We sent somebody from this area to the same distance away, and it was very quickly that they started to burn out because they were lonely. Like, they were insulated in my business. They were somebody that they had a team around them. They thrived in a team environment. When they were by themselves, like, they just didn't know what to do. And it just, there's a personality style there. So it is a lonely job. So you need somebody that is like ready and able to build a community around them. Like, they like going to the coffee shop and like chatting it up, because that's where they start building a community around themselves. They can be friends with anybody, right? If somebody's too technical, but like they're kind of shy, that might be a struggle for them.
Sure.
So you need somebody that is ready for like that lonely job. Entrepreneurship is lonely. This is not too different from entrepreneurship without the risk.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, I haven't thought about that. That's definitely a good nugget right there.
Now, here's another thing that I'll say, and this is not talked about a lot. Be ready to change the entire way that you lead your team, because it requires remote leadership. And you guys are tech savvy, so not like fitness people that are not as tech savvy, but like all your meetings are now going to be on Zoom instead of in person.
Yep.
There's a big difference to keeping Zoom meetings engaging. So you want to set like, you want to lead from the understanding that like, I am a remote leader. So you want to, there's some probably learning to do there, like setting rules for how you want Zoom meetings to go. Like, how do you keep the energy of this in-person environment alive in a remote environment? So like for me, the ways that we try to do that is we try to do as much voice or video interaction as possible. So when I think like, because I still work at Gage, so the amount of like touch points and high fives and like in-person conversations that I have in the gym, I try to mimic that as much as possible on Slack, on Zoom, and on the phone. So for my remote people, I do my best to like shoot them video messages, connect one-on-one via voice, not just text message or email. So try to mimic as much of the in-person touch points when you are leading remotely.
Sure. What have been some like maybe some realizations of remote leadership that you weren't expecting when you first decided to do this?
Realizations of remote leadership. It's exactly that. It's like they need a lot of touch points. And there's plenty of books written on this. Like I've read a couple books on it, but you have to try to mimic the energy and personality of the in office life as possible. Like even there's a few little like, kind of quirky things that you can do, but if you do like a quarterly meeting on Zoom, like order them lunch. So you're both eating lunch at the same time, or both go to a coffee shop and work from the coffee shop, even remotely.
Sure.
Right. Have virtual like kudos tips. So we use a system called Bonusly. So it integrates with Slack. And when I see somebody do something even remotely, I can send them points that they can redeem it for like 1 cent per point or something for like gift cards. But it's just like little touch point, as many touch points as possible. But I would just set a goal for yourself to like keep a leadership scorecard. So I keep a leadership scorecard where every day I try to have one like impactful voice or video connection or in person with one staff member every single day. So, and it's a physical scorecard where every day I try to have like one memorable or meaningful interaction that happens either voice, video, or in person. So other than that, always be on camera on Zoom.
Oh yeah.
Like make a statement about that, because again, set a precedent that like, hey, if we meet, I'm here, you're here, like unless there's a really explicit reason, like your face is fucked up or like maybe you're driving, like it's a pre-planned thing that we talk about, everybody should be on video. Yeah, I'm trying to think anything else. Like there's a lot of cool Zoom features.
Yeah.
Here's one more. So your leadership presence is really important. So the way you communicate as a leader is really important, especially at scale. Like this is a little bit of a different topic, but especially when you're scaling without a franchise or without partners, your leadership becomes way, way more important because you're needing people to work as if they are owners, but they're not. So again, I don't know how you plan on scaling, like if there's an equity or whatever, but I didn't. Like I own 100% of my gyms. The need for like inspirational leadership is that much higher when people don't have as much quote unquote skin in the game. So one of the tools, like just your presence is really powerful. One of the tools that I did is there's an app called Speako. And it started when I was doing a lot more public speaking, but it basically coaches me on my leadership or public speaking skill. So if I upload an audio of like a talk that I do, it'll tell me how many filler words I use. It'll tell me my pacing, my tone, the tonality. It'll tell me like how many pauses there are, and it coaches you. It'll like keep trend over time. It'll like give you coaching tips. There's a feature in it, you can plug it into your Zoom meetings. So it'll give little pop-ups. It'll be like, stop saying or like,
Oh, that's sweet.
Like slow down your speech cadence. So again, like those little things are really impactful, especially when you're leading remotely.
Sure. No, I like that. I'll have to get that app for sure.
Yeah.
That sounds great. One thing though you mentioned I want to like ask another question about, as you said, as many like touch points as possible. How do you do that without micromanaging at the same time? Especially if you want them bought in like it's their business?
It's a good question. So it has more to do with the needs of the business. And one of my favorite leadership frameworks is called situational leadership. And I'm going to oversimplify it, but it's basically like if you look at like an XY axis, like a matrix, there's the X line has the rating of the skill, and then the Y rates the will. So that's the motivation of the employee. You have to match not only the individual. So let's say you put John in there, who's like super excited and he's new to this role. That's going to be a very high will, low skill. So you need to match your leadership towards the level of skill of that individual. Now, let's say he's incredibly skilled at video editing. Like he's sitting behind the camera and he's doing all that. He is not skilled at the financial aspect. So you need to not only meet him where he's at from a overall standpoint, but from a skill standpoint, from an individual task standpoint.
Gotcha.
So I'll give an example. Jose might be listening because he listens to all of our stuff.
Yeah, Jose.
Like Jose is an incredible coach. He's really good at programming. He's really good at like social media media stuff, like video editing and putting out content. All those things, like I can fully delegate. I don't have to micromanage any of it, but he's very motivated, but he's never been on his own, like doing the sales, doing the growth of a business. Like you just have to meet him where he's at there, which is probably like a daily meeting.
Okay.
So my sales team, we do a huddle. So that's a Slack feature that we use, the Slack huddle feature. And it's a 10-minute just like, hey, where are you at? Here's the plan. Let's go get it. So I think it has more to do with just how much you meet with people. It has more to do with like what you're asking of them and if they have the skills or not. Because it's very easily to demotivate somebody if you're too hands off and they're like floundering. And I've made that mistake.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will say like my vision for my business is to become known as the best place to work. I've done a lot of research and read a lot into like how many meetings is too many? Like what's the perfect meeting pulse? They do say like 4 meetings on the calendar per week is like the max that you want to do. So if you have an individual, like try to not overload them with meetings.
Sure.
Make sure every meeting is like on an agenda and it's got a good mix of like your leadership, but also letting them speak and, take action on things.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And then this is my last question before we kind of dive into the lessons you brought. But what are some of the systems you wish you had in place that you didn't before scaling?
We had zero systems. We thought we had systems. And that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about is we thought we had systems because everything was kind of driven around like either people watching me do stuff and replicating it, or just I had more of an influence and was doing more than I really realized. So we had almost no systems. And we'll talk about like what a real system or process, I should say process is. Yeah. But I would challenge you that you probably have fewer systems like truly fully in place than you might realize. And well, let's talk about it.
Yeah, let's do
so
it.
I brought. Does that answer your question?
A little bit.
You need everything.
Yeah.
You need everything. If there's anything that's left off, like that's not written down and like black or white and very measurable, you don't have a system. So it's like you want to avoid words like do a really good job or like provide a great experience. You want to break that out. Like what are the measurable and like concrete things that lead to a good experience? That's the level of like systems that you want to develop.
Sure.
So let's touch on it. So I prepared 5 things from my own little brain dump on if I were to give myself advice scaling my business, this is what I would share. So a lot of it's, kind of been covered. I'll go a little bit further into them. But the first one is understanding there's 2 costs of opening a business. There's the cost, there's a physical cost, like the money and the time put in. But then there's the cost on your current business. So if you're out fucking screwing in drywall and like gluing panels to the wall, what are you not doing? So what's the opportunity cost of the impact that you currently have? So, and that goes way deeper than just physical time. It's your bandwidth, it's your energy, it's the stress load that it adds, what it takes away from like your life force at your current business. So that's a very real thing. When I had one additional location, luckily the girl we had running it was a stud and she basically ran with everything. But and that's why I realized we didn't really have systems because she was just a natural. When we opened our next location, I was like, oh, I'm having to do a lot more. That's when my original location started to plateau.
Gotcha.
So
okay.
like we still were able to grow our original with the second one. When we got the third one, I was like, oh shoot, like I'm being stretched thin at this point. I don't think we have the right systems in place. So that's the 2 costs to really understand. That's my first tip is like, just be ready for those costs. If this business completely stopped growing or it didn't grow at the rate, would it be okay? And would you still like, are you mapping the trajectory versus your current reality? Right.
Yeah.
So if this business is like, you're like, we're going to be more profitable, like plan for, does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I'm following.
Yeah. So if you have a second location, plan for this one to plateau. If it grows, great, but plan for it not to do anything else.
Yep.
And plan your finances around that too. So number 2 is there's a theory called the Peter Principle. Have you ever heard of that?
I've not.
So the Peter Principle, I'm almost positive that's what it's called. It is people will rise or people can elevate to the level of their incompetence. I never understood what that meant until I saw it firsthand. And here's the way it works. If you try to internally elevate somebody, they will be able to elevate until they reach a level of responsibility that is not a linear skill set. So the example is like if you've been in the gym world, maybe it's video editing in your world.
Yeah.
It's probably a good correlation. If you have like a stud video editor that starts taking on more projects and then they take on more projects and then you want to elevate them to like the video editor manager, management is not a natural progression. Manager is not a natural next step from individual contributor. In fact, what makes somebody a really good individual contributor is like being the go-getter, like doing things on their own, being self-sufficient, wanting to be the star is not what makes you a good manager. In fact, it makes you a bad manager. So that's what that Peter Principle means is like a great individual contributor will grow until they're tasked with stuff that they've never had to do before. Does that make sense?
It does. How would you then develop that?
So you should hire for experience. So you want to plan to hire for experience. So I've talked at length with people about this. Like, if I needed to hire a manager, I don't necessarily need somebody that's been in fitness before. Like, if somebody was a great coach or was coaching for a long time, that means absolutely nothing when it comes to management. So I would just look for a manager that has management experience and a proven track record of being a good manager and leader of people. So the other thing that I would say is before they are in that role, start really pushing them towards like that skill development. So again, like if they're on this trajectory of like video editing skill and they're getting really, really good, 6 months before you want to put them in like a leadership role or a management role, put them into management training, because that skill set, like if video editing goes this way, that skill set goes this way, and they're never going to naturally do it.
Yeah.
So make sure that they want to be a manager. It's very, very different. We've put many people into managing roles that did not like it. And we had to like eventually pull them out because they were there because they wanted to be a team player and they wanted to succeed. But in EOS, we call it GWC. If you don't get it, if you don't want it, you'll never succeed. Nobody should have to white knuckle it through a job just because they like who they work for. So just understand what skills are going to be required and really push them towards going and immersing themselves in that specific skill. Make sense?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the Peter principle, is understanding that the next level, like it may not be what somebody wants or they're any good at. And we've seen that many, many times, especially when it comes to managing people. The next one is on systems, right? You probably have fewer systems than you need at this point, and that's fine. And don't wait for the perfect systems. We still don't. But all of your processes need to be black and white, like 100% done or not done. You want to avoid any vague language like do a good job or provide a great experience. Again, you want to break out what does the perfect podcast session look like minute by minute and turn it into concrete actions that can be like checklisted every single time. Because what you'll find is when the numbers don't look good and you call your guy in King of Prussia studios and you're like, hey, what's going on? Why didn't we get new clients? And they're like, I don't know. I'm doing a great job. I'm doing everything you asked. And you're like, shit. And you're scratching your head like, what the hell's going on? And then you're going to go see it and you'll be like, holy shit, this guy or girl isn't doing any of the stuff that they should be doing. And it's either because they can't do it or they don't realize they're doing badly or it's just not good enough. So it needs to be incredibly black and white. And that's the only, like if you watched a video of them doing it or you witnessed it, you should be able to literally check box all of the things.
Gotcha.
Like the best example I can give you with that is like our sales process. I have a 7-stage sales process that are very specific. Like when you enter discovery, you need to ask 5 questions. If you don't ask 5 questions, you do not get a check on discovery. If you don't get them to have a personal statement, like a personal friendliness in the opening of the call, you did not pass the rapport portion of the test, right? If you did not explicitly tell them that the end of this call ends in a decision, either a yes, no, or we'll set up a time for future conversation, you did not pass the manage expectations stage. If it's not that black and white, you will just struggle to like really manage remotely.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So if the systems are less than that, like it's just like, yeah, be friendly when they walk in. Like it should be greeted within 10 seconds of them walking in the door, right? And that's a checklist thing that if you were able to watch it, you could set a timer and say, you greeted them at 12 seconds. That's not a checkbox. And that's harsh, but that's the only way to lead at scale.
Sure.
Right? To
that
be
makes a lot
that
of sense.
specific. And I'll give you an example from the real world. So I went to Wawa. This was like a year ago. I went to Wawa. I ordered a sandwich. And on the receipt, they have like the instructions for the sandwich maker. And like the level of detail is crazy. It's like, it's not just I ordered a turkey, cheese, and lettuce, no onion. That's not what it says. It says grab 6-inch hoagie roll, grab 2 slices of turkey, place on roll. Like that's all written
Yo.
on the sandwich. It says close sandwich, wrap in this paper, tape shut. All of that is on there because they're like, we're not leaving anything to chance that some idiot doesn't know to close the sandwich at the end of the thing.
Fair.
At scale, you cannot take any risk. I'll give you another example. I went to a baseball game at Fenway Park like 10 years ago with my dad. My dad's 82. He was in his 70s when we went. They carded my dad. Like, no way in hell does he look under 21. He looks like he's 75. But they card 100% of people.
Yep.
Because it removes any seed of doubt that there's like one guy that's just really good at knowing people's ages or one person that's really bad at it. It's like we card 100% of the people 100% of the time. If you don't card people, you don't follow the process. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So all of your processes, you want that like that granular and that specific and black and white. And it feels like micromanaging, but if you go to 10 locations, if you don't do it now, it'll just be a nightmare.
Sure.
So that is the level of system that you want to develop.
Simplify it down as much as you possibly can, and then when you think it's simple enough, do it again. Pretty much.
And also make sure you remove any special skills.
Yeah.
So I had to do that in my sales process. Like I've got just so much experience and knowledge when it comes to communication and sales. Like, I mean, we've worked with Growth Dynamics on their sales process. I've studied NLP and hypnotherapy and motivational interviewing, all these like communication things. There's a lot that I can understand or pick up in situations. None of them belong in the system because you have to have anybody be able to follow it. So while it needs to be black and white, it needs to be vague enough that anybody can do it. Does that make sense?
It does.
So that's my thought on systems. Is like what systems you need in place. Anything that's left unwritten down or without a black and white thing should be created a system around.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Number 4, I call it dream. You guys are Wu-Tang fans. Cream, cash rules everything around me. I say data rules everything around me. So data should drive all of your decisions. And it should like what you will find is the numbers don't lie. Again, if you get a call, you look at the numbers one day and you're like, why isn't this studio growing? And the guy or girl is telling you like, I don't know, Matt, I'm doing everything you tell me. Like it's going really well. The data will tell you and believe it. Because if your consult to conversion rate is low, it is not because people can't afford it. It's not because the economy. It's because your person isn't following the proven process that you know to be effective. And even though they'll tell you that they are following it, when you go and witness it, you will see 100% of the time they either aren't doing it or aren't doing it well. So build your scorecard. So do you have scorecards?
Yeah.
So build your scorecard. All of your decisions must be made from the scorecard.
Makes sense.
So, and also like try to validate everything with data. If you're ever feeling like a number is good or bad, look at the scorecard. What does the scorecard say? Like there's a lot of times you're a visionary, I'm a visionary. We'll get ideas or things will come up and we're like, yeah, we need to change. We need to do better at this. We need to change this. And it's like, well, what does the scorecard say? It's like, well, we're doing really well. It's like, don't fuck with it. You know?
Yep. Sometimes that could be difficult to do when you are.
Yeah. Or if you do fuck with it,
Yeah.
at least know you're fucking with it and you're doing it as a gamble and like you're tracking data. Like people, my employees all the time will come to me with ideas and I'm like, they're like, I want to do this. Like, what do you think? And I'm like, split test it. Don't go all in on it. Like split test this approach versus another and let's let the data tell us. I think it'll work, but let's test it. So always like go in and test stuff and make sure it's done in a proper way. So you need somebody that's good with numbers because I'm not either. I'm not good at organizing the numbers. I'm good at seeing them and identifying what they mean. But you want somebody that can like track that long term, like a data nerd, and then you can look at it and be like, all right, this is what we're gonna do.
Data nerds. Yeah. I need you.
And the last thing is when you do build your scorecard. So tell me, like, give me some examples of what's on your scorecard.
Yeah. So let's just do like a marketing scorecard. It'll be, we'll have 10 DMs a day that we have to do. We'll do this just like on our organic social side. We'll follow the maximum number of accounts every day. Everyone who follows us gets a DM that's super measurable right there. Something else we'll do is, when we have a lead come in, whether it's like paid ad or anything like that, we're calling them within 60 seconds.
Perfect. Yeah. So you have built a proper scorecard.
Nice.
The mistake most people make, and I'm willing to bet a lot of people listening have a scorecard that looks like, all right, marketing, we need 10 new leads a week. We need 6 trials from those leads. We need to sell 3 memberships from those 6 trials, right? What's the problem with that scorecard?
It's vague.
Well, it's yes.
Yeah.
It's completely uncontrollable.
Yeah.
You have zero control over leads that come in. You have zero control over how many trials get set. You can try to book trials, but if you're only measuring the outcomes, you're going to have a really hard time. But what you are measuring are the inputs.
Mm-hmm.
So the inputs versus the outputs. And that's the mistake most people make, and I'm glad to hear that your scorecard is built that way. It's like you're not measuring leads. You're measuring what you know is going to generate leads. So that's how you use data.
Sure.
Is if I need 5 new clients, I need to follow 10 people per day within 60 seconds. Like that's a measurable thing. They get a message. 100% of new follows get a message.
Yep.
That's how you build a scorecard. So the next is actually 6 because one of them's a little half message. But that's how you need to be using data. All your decisions must be coming from data, and then you need to build a scorecard based on the leading indicators, not just the lagging. Number 4 is avoid the trap of putting people in positions based on who you have. The killer of a lot of gym businesses, and maybe this industry too, is, well, this is who I have, right? I've got Gabe. I love you, Gabe. I don't know anything about your skill set aside from what I've seen you do here. But if you're like, man, Gabe's really good, but he's just not good at sales. So, but he's who I have, right? If you're like, Gabe's going to be my guy, and we're going to put him in there because he's great at video editing, he's great at this, he's just not good at sales. It kind of going back to like putting the right people in the right seats. If you need somebody that's good at sales, like you need to think from what the needs of the business are, not who you have. Because if you structure the business around the people that you have, you will set goals based on their limitations, not the needs of the business. So we've had like salespeople that I'm like, man, Gage, we have 500 clients with a 5% attrition rate. Like we lose whatever percentage of clients every single week. We need to sell 12 memberships every week. If we had a salesperson that they can only do 7 per week because that's the skill set that they have, the business will lose money. We'll lose clients. So I need somebody, the needs of the business, black or white, the needs of the business is somebody that can sell 12 memberships per week. So always think from the needs of the business, not who you have.
Gotcha.
Make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Now, who you have fulfills the needs of the business, but it's like you said, if your studio needs to grow and you need X number of new clients every week, you need a person that can produce that. And if Gabe can't do it, sorry, Gabe, you're not getting the next shot.
Sorry, Gabe.
But that's where he can develop skill sets. And the last thing that I'll say is, I kind of started with this, is like, if the plan is to expand, get very, very, very specific and honest with yourself about what you really want from that, right? 10 studios. What is that going to do for you? Is it purely financial? Like if you were like, I want to make $1 million, do you need 10 studios to make $1 million?
No.
Like this is the one that I challenge a lot of people on is, and we talked about it in here, like, is the answer to what you really want more finances or is it more freedom? Does 10 studios just sound good, or can you do it in one with a much tighter operation, more profits, and like squeezing way more out of this? Now listen, I want 100 locations.
Yeah.
It's not for the money. Because
Sure.
if it was for the money, I would be doing things way fucking differently. Like I would be making a lot more money if I just tightened the fuck out of my one gym and was 100% focused on that one location or did consulting, or there's a lot of other ways to reach a financial outcome. I want 100 locations because I want to become the person that has accomplished that. And that is what motivates me, is to become the person that can run 100 locations and get it to that level of operational excellence. So really start with like as much of a granular understanding of what you want in the end. What is 10 Studios going to give you? Is it going to give you X finances? And don't be married to the route that you have planned. Just be hyper focused on what do you really want from this? Because again, 10 Studios is kind of arbitrary. Maybe it can be done in 5. Maybe it can be done in 1. Or maybe it is 10 because you want to be that guy too. But that's my last piece of advice for anybody that is thinking about scaling or wants multiple locations or growth. Like, do not be married to, I need 10 locations, or I need 2 locations, or I need another one. Maybe the answer is just better before bigger. So that is my spiel on scaling, some of the mistakes that I've made, some of the things that you could plan for. I don't know. You got anything else?
Yeah, that was great. I mean, a lot of big takeaways for me. Starting from the top and working all the way down. I think the biggest one too is just make sure, every system's just as black and white as possible, and leave nothing up to chance.
Yeah, and have a place that all those processes and systems are stored. Like, another mistake that I've made is like, again, I just go off the top of my head sometimes. So like, I'll write a thing in Slack or an email or whatever. Get a fucking centralized, you have better organization systems because of the nature of your business, but get a file where everything goes and then just make sure there's somebody like keeping it there and keeping it organized.
Fair enough.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Awesome.
Well, I hope you guys learned anything. If you had any comments, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop them in whatever comment section might exist in wherever you're listening to, and I'll see you soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like this content, make sure that you like and subscribe to get more of the content that you want to see about growing your fitness business. You can click any of the videos here to see other episodes, but I want to hear from you, so drop some comments into other content that you would like to see.